The title of my case study is The Battle of Focus. During my diagnostics, I noticed that my student needed help with producing a good sound, note reading, and remembering to take good breaths. I discovered this when my student would breathe before starting a note, and she would take a weak, shallow breath. As she played her scale, her tone was really weak because she did not have the proper breath to support the tone. It became clear that my student needed help with note reading when she couldn't play the warm-up exercise that she didn't have memorized. I chose to focus on these three fundamental things because without these being 100%, a student cannot progress at a timely rate compared to other classmates. The procedure that I chose to use in order to help my student was to incorporate breathing gym into our lessons as a reminder to take a good deep breath. I planned different note reading exercises with my student to try and get her to recall the information. Modeling was a big tool for me. Singing examples, demonstrating proper breathing before starting a note, all of these helped a lot. As far as behaviors, I would praise good behaviors and explain and demonstrate the correct behaviors expected when they were not met. So what really happened? Well, as you will hear in my recordings, the main issue that came about was focus. My student had a lot of trouble staying focused on the task at hand. She wouldn't be focusing on taking good breaths, so she would have a bad sound. When she would focus on having a good full breath, she would pinch her embouchure. When she would be note reading, she wouldn't focus hard enough to remember what note came after the next, even if they were just a step apart. I would explain a rhythm to my student, and she would copy it correctly, but when asked to go back and do it by herself without hearing it beforehand, she couldn't focus hard enough to get it right. Here is an example of the battle happening twice within one lesson. Here is an example of later on in that lesson. And as you can see, the student had trouble with maintaining everything at the same time. Here's an example of what I did with note reading. I would put the notes on the staff, she would copy and recite the notes aloud. And to test her on it, I would have her notate what I would call out. And if she was having trouble, we would go back and work through it together. Here's an example of that lesson plan. Deviations from my plan. My original plan of action remained in place, but I constantly had to remind my student to focus. I did not want to remind my student of the same thing every time because it would have become a crutch for my student and she would have relied on me to remind her to do every little thing. I would give my student the opportunity to do the expected behaviors, and when she did not, I would remind her in the middle or after the exercise and have her do it again with focusing. You will hear this happening you will hear examples of this happening in my later recordings, specifically this recording when she stops and makes silly mistakes because of lack of focus.
That's the thing you counted of 4. So make sure that you're counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And don't rush. Let's try it again one more time. 25 to 32. Yes.
Student just stop. So one thing that I learned from this is to not expect my student to know everything when we get there. The basic concepts she may not understand. I think one thing my student learned from this was refocusing herself when playing. I know this because as we progressed in our lesson, she got better with recalling the information. I feel that in the future when teaching one-on-one, I will do more to help my student maintain focus and be more engaged with the lesson. In my one-on-one lessons, I would get more engaging pieces and etudes to have my student work on. I think the most positive aspect of my lessons overall has been developing a good relationship with my student so that things didn't feel so awkward. I know for me, I feel really awkward when I'm being taught privately by someone I don't know. If I can't relate to you, I'm not going to learn from you. And I feel that as a teacher, I should find a way to relate to my student because how are they supposed to learn from me if they can't relate to me? A big thing that this has taught me about ensemble directing and music teaching is to never assume your students know something just because the upperclassmen around them know it. My student sat 2 chairs away from the senior trumpet player who was going off to college for music education, and she wasn't learning from that person. And I feel that in my future programs, one thing that I can do to prevent that is establish a Big Brother, Big Sister program where upperclassmen mentor and tutor younger students in music and academic classes to maintain successful musicians and students. Because just because you are in a music class doesn't mean the person next to you can't help you with your math assignment. I want all of my students to be successful in all aspects of their academic careers, including music.